The White House is getting worried about his polling numbers on this, and they are getting worried that what's going to happen to the economy in terms of the election, and what is it's really going to be shaping up. And we'll talk to Alex Perrine about this, but the election, and this is certainly Joe Biden's strategy. They want this to be exclusively a referendum on Donald Trump. And certainly in the era of coronavirus, that becomes even a lot harder for Donald Trump. And ultimately, the question is going to be not whether Donald Trump is going to get more or less votes than Joe Biden. It's going to be where it is. So, where those votes come from, because we have an electoral college. So Donald Trump is now saying that we're probably going to go back to normal in a month. This is absurd for a number of reasons. We'll talk more about this with Alex Perrine as well. But here he is trying to comfort everyone with his understanding of how well we're going to do going forward. This is clip number one.
What do you say to the 16 million Americans, more than 16 million Americans who have lost their jobs in the last 3 weeks and fear that the economy won't just bounce back, like you said?
Well, I think the economy is going to do very well. Now, that's just my feeling. It's a strong feeling. I've had good, proper feelings about a lot of things over the years, and I think we're going to do well. It looks like we're at the lower end of the curve in terms of death, which is a terrible word, a terrible dark word that we've experienced like nobody's ever seen before in this country. I mean, we have numbers that are terrible, but when you look at the lower prediction levels of 120,000 to 220,000, or if we did nothing, up to 2.2 million people, we're looking at a much lower level than the level of, I hope, than the level of 100,000. So we're going to see. We're going to have to. You can never do anything about the people that lost their loved ones and lost their friends, and I mean the great friendships. And I'm not sure a lot of people will ever be the same. But I think our country, from an economic standpoint, will end up being stronger than ever. We have tremendous stimulus. We have tremendous stimulus plans. We have things in the works that are going to really, I think, fire the country. I think that what's going to happen is we're going to have a big bounce rather than a small bounce.
What is amazing to watch is Donald Trump try to sound empathetic about people dying. It is fascinating where he realizes there's a bunch of words that he's been told to say. You know, people have lost their loved ones. They've lost this and that now. And he just sort of recites this with absolutely no connection to the words he's saying. It's fascinating. I mean, no one looks to him for this. I don't think. I mean, maybe there are people, some of his voters perceive it this way. And he could be right in terms of the kind of bounce that we're going to have, but it's very hard to imagine. Once you get past a certain point, it's going to be very difficult for small businesses anyways to just ramp back up, to get their customers to come back in, to get their, and here's the problem with we'll talk more about this with Perrine as well, but here's the problem with Donald Trump saying we're going to all come back in May. One, it's not up to him. Most of our stay-at-home orders are a function of the states, and they're not going to listen to the federal government on this stuff because they've gotten screwed in the past when they tried to. Yeah, and just in terms of guidance. The other is that I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to take a little time before I go to a movie. I'm going to take a little time before I go to the mall. And we're not even there yet. But I mean, on the day that, Donald Trump says we can all come out now, I'm going to take a little more time, I think. And I think the other issue that we're going to have is that this has been a rolling situation. In New York City, Yesterday, 800 patients died, which was twice as many as on any day before. They died, I should say, specifically in hospitals of COVID-19. In addition, 200 New Yorkers a day are dying at home, which is about on a typical day, let's say 3 months ago in New York, you get about 20 people dying at home. Now, it's unclear what they're dying of. They could be dying of COVID-19. They also could be dying of other things that have been untreated because hospitals are so overwhelmed. But we do have basically a shrinkage of the rate of increase and maybe even a flattening of the in New York of new hospitalizations, which indicates that at the very least we're, the curve, we're at the dropping part of the curve. But one of the things about flattening in the curve is that you're actually, when you flatten the curve, what you're doing is you're pushing, you're disaggregating and you're almost depreciating the numbers across time. So what you've done is made it possible for hospitals to deal with the numbers that are coming in, but the numbers are still going to come in, still going to exist. And none of this is going to be dealt with until we get testing. And as far as anybody can tell, the federal government has been a disaster in this regard. In fact, they had announced at the beginning of last week, they were going to pull all support of testing. I should say a couple days ago. I can't even remember what day it is today. I think it was 2 days ago. On Wednesday, they said they were going to pull all testing support by the end of the week. And then they reversed themselves when people were like, what? Hope springs eternal, folks. But we're in for, I think, a little bit more of a difficult time than Donald Trump wants us to believe. I certainly hope to be wrong about that. I would be very, 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 very excited if we could all just go back to normal in 2.5 weeks, and the economy bounces back the next day. I'd be more than happy about that, believe me. But does not look like the most likely of scenarios. In the meantime,